when I was doing my research, I figured how complex that problem is in terms of Kukis, Metis, Nagas. Everyone is kind of fighting for rights as well as territory. That's the sense I got. Again, this is a very generalized statement. It's an extremely complex history and it's an extremely complex issue in the modern day. So, after seeing all these videos on YouTube, after doing my reading based research, my consensus was that is this even a solvable problem? Because if you negotiate with one group, then the other group might get pissed off.
Then we everything solvable. Abhi, you must have heard recently Ulfa also faction came on board. Manipur mein UNLF faction came on board, which was functioning out of Myanmar. So every day you see, in insurgent groups laying their arms. They are also tired, Ranveer. They're staying away from their families. They're in some rough terrain somewhere. They don't have proper food to eat, or they have to live a rough life. This sort of negative environment, you can't sustain it.
Again, another thing I found pretty crazy as someone sitting in Mumbai is the fact that at one point, I think the local police in Manipur started fighting with the Indian army. They fired bullets at each other.
See, a lot of things have happened in Manipur. There's a lot of trust deficit between organizations, groups, communities. Sadly, I feel what trust deficit, when that comes in, that's a little difficult to bridge. It takes time. It takes a lot of faith from both sides. You and me, both of us will want to solve a problem. Only then will it be solved. But sometimes there are vested interests. For them, it's beneficial to keep the problem running. And this is what we are seeing happening in Manipur.
What's happening as we speak?
So, see, obviously the conflict has become prolonged. Now, one of the reasons it has become prolonged is because these are two communities that have lived side by side for, ages. And there's no way they can go. This is where they have to live. Unfortunately, what has happened is communities have become confined to certain geographical areas.
Okay. In the valley, you'll mostly find the Metis,
Metis
and the hills have the Kukis.
And people say the valley is 10%. I'd say it's about 6%
In terms of area,
because if you take out the lakes, the infrastructure, जो livable, habitable area hai, that is, in my opinion, about 6-7%. But that has the majority of the population. The hills has the minority population, and it's the hills. It has lesser development, and that's where largely the Kukis live. But, it's not just that the Kukis live there. You have the Metis also, you have the Nagas also. See, when we talk about Manipur, a lot of people only look at it from the prism of Kukis versus Metis. What about the Nagas? They're also there.
how do they feel about this conflict?
See, they have, obviously, there's been a Kuki Naga in the 90s conflict as well, which took almost, I think, 6 years, Ranveer, if I'm not wrong, to subside. So they are, they have used better judgment, let's say, to not really push themselves in, because we don't need now another factor coming in and, this thing. But I think they would make a neutral party to be able to negotiate between two communities. This is my opinion, and tribal communities work very much on leadership, community leadership, elders who guide them. And I am not ready to believe that there aren't people like that. Who represent their own communities, who are willing to come on the table and say, okay, now what's the best that we can do?
Sure. Okay, coming back to what you said about vested interests. So the Kukis are traditionally a tribal community as well.
Yeah. Now, there's
Go on.
another thing in this, that Kuki is an umbrella term. Naga is an umbrella term. Tribes have sub-tribes also. So the Nagas were 16 plus sub-tribes. Naga is not one unified tribe.
Sure.
They had different languages, they had different clothes, different weaves. Weaves are very important. Right? It tells you by looking at you which tribe you're from.
Gotcha.
And every home has a handloom sort of a machine, because they make their own, weaves. And so they had that, was different, language was different. It was only when the British came in, for better administration, let's say, like they did with the caste system, things like that. They changed the systems themselves. With the tribal systems also, what they said, we can't control them. They keep raiding us. We can't communicate with them. They won't listen to us. Let's give them morality. Let's give them civilization, because they saw tribal communities as uncivilized. So they gave them a common language. Then they gave them a common religion. So today Nagaland is 95% Christian. It wasn't that before independence. So under these parameters, the Naga word came to be used as a
Umbrella term. For a lot of the tribes which had some similarities.
All tribes. All Naga tribes that had some loose connection, but they didn't even speak the same language. They gave them a language.
Sure.
So they started speaking the same common language. Then they gave them education. So they started speaking English. Then they gave them religion. So they all became Christians. So it became a unified umbrella. Same with the Kukis. Kuki is not one tribe per se. It'll have many sub-tribes under it. Kuki, we call them Kukis this side. The Mizos from Mizoram are also loosely connected to them. The Chins in Myanmar are also connected to them. So they have loose linguistic sort of relationships, ethnic relationships, not necessarily tight-knitted. Aisa nahi hai that everybody is a best friend.
Not every Kuki is...
not every sub-tribe is a best friend of each other. Some sub-tribes feel, population-wise, that one is a bigger tribe. So hame dominate karta hai, hamara aspiration, they forget, So there is that kind of little inter-tribal rivalry, but the larger umbrella term is Kuki.
Gotcha. Okay. Back to the 2024 angle. So what's happening right now? Is this situation going to be solved anytime soon?
See, to keep the conflict like Manipur alive, you have to ask yourself, where's the ammunition coming from for so long?
Okay, gotcha.
Where are the weapons coming from? Where's the money coming from?
So the vested interests lie in Myanmar.
Yes, there are transnational ethnic loyalties there also, right? In Myanmar. Because I said, it's one tribe, loosely connected, there's that, so sometimes...
Just sorry, I got to interrupt you for better understanding.
Please.
What I understood from the research was that the Kukis in the 1800s or 1700s
were brought by the British.
From Myanmar.
See, again, boundary तो बीच में बना दिया ना. हाँ, तो आधे सब ट्राइब्स उस साइड रह गए, आधे इस साइड रह गए. हाँ, मगर अगर आप ये कहोगे ना, कुकी कहेगा नहीं, हम तो यहाँ पहले से थे. That's where the history difference happens.
As in, Kukis believe that they were originally a part of...
the British didn't bring us. We've always been... Meiteis say, no, you were brought. Now we can debate this or whatever, but it might be better not to go into that territory.
Got it. No, I mean, for anyone from Manipur watching this, I'm just trying to learn here. Coming back to the vested interests angle. So people from Myanmar who are refugees, as well as possibly insurgents who are moving from Myanmar into India. You're saying that this fuels the fire that's going on in Manipur.
Yeah, of course, this fuels the fire. There are vested interests within Manipur also who would like to keep this running.
They like to keep this running in order to make more money?
More money? Conflict always makes money.
How does this conflict realistically make anyone money?
See, to keep a conflict running, you need to have some sort of trade going on. Whether it's buying weapons, whether it's selling weapons, whether it's drugs, whether it's the idea of an ambition of a greater independence. Just like we earlier spoke about Greater Nagaland. They wanted a separate country. Why do you want a separate country? Because you have greater authority. So why do you want territorial change in Manipur? Because you have greater authority. So this is also a power struggle, so as to say.
I also believe that some of that hilly land border that we share with Myanmar, or a lot of it, is very conducive to growing opium. See,
Myanmar, ever since Taliban has come into Afghanistan, a lot of the opium cultivation has shifted to Myanmar. So it's almost like 90% of their cultivation lands in the northeast, to the extent that Manipur at one point had the highest rate of HIV in the country because of intravenous drug use. Now that has been shifted to Mizoram. Mizoram has it.
Whatever opium is growing in Myanmar is being sold in India.
Yeah.
And that's creating a drug problem
That's creating a drug problem, health problem.
that fuels the insurgency that's happening in Myanmar.
Correct, because they're making money, na? So they don't want these
Right.
borders to be blocked.
Okay. But do drugs get cultivated in India as well in the Northeast? Because I'm assuming the geography is similar.
See, I've been to these areas and it's you can't deny it. You can see complete hills that are shaved for poppy cultivation.
Gotcha.
And then apparently a lot of the treatment plants are back in Myanmar. So then it's further treated into other drugs. So it's not just heroin that is being used. There are all sorts of other levels of drugs that are being used and produced.
Okay. So the vested interests are all these things in terms of if there's a conflict, weapon trade makes X person money, drug trade makes X or Y person money, etc. There's a lot of money to be generated
There's a
from
lot of
conflict.
money, there's a lot of power. Like I see even people on social media raging and ranting about this from both sides.
Talking about pro-Modi, anti-Modi.
No, I'm talking about pro-cookie, pro-Methi.
Oh, okay.
So I see people raging and ranting about it, putting up videos that obviously are real videos. I'm not denying, that they're not real and they're very sad. How is it helping the cause? What is it subsiding? It's almost like antagonizing you even more, because one community sees what's happening with somebody else and then they get upset. So I think there is no moderation in this. There is no moderate voice that's coming up and saying, guys, let's calm down. Let's take a breather. Let's put our weapons down. Let's not support anybody with weapons. You see, support can only also come on local grounds.
As in?
If you're smuggling weapons in, where will you bring them from? You'll bring them across the border. Where will the insurgent hide? Where will he stay? Local support, if he does not have, then where's he going to keep all of this? How's he going to find his way through? So a lot of times there's local support also, because those guys also must get a pound of flesh, or they might feel some loyalty or something like that.
Fair. Coming back to the Manipur issue, I think your overarching point here is that someone from Manipur needs to come out and talk about a truce as well as address the issues on both sides and then come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I think, when there's trust deficit, when there has been stuff that's happened that's wrong on both ends, not just, it's not just the fault of one community, there are problems with both, then you have to build that trust. Before you start asking for what you were asking for, you need to start build that trust. You need to begin dialogue. You need to at least be able to sit on the table.
If you enjoyed today's clip, make sure you check out these curated playlists that we've made especially for you related to the subject that was spoken about in this clip.